The biggest plan on the table thus far is coming from my next guest, Senator Jim DeMint, who's calling for a $2.5 trillion cut in spending over that same period, something that would amount to about $250 billion per year. Senator DeMint joins me right now from the nation's capital. And Senator, welcome to you first. That's quite a big effort, sir. But in this environment, perhaps only this environment, does it seem like almost a spit in the ocean. Because throughout that period, our debt will continue to grow. You'll shave it by about $2.5 trillion if you get your way. But it's almost as if this debt monster is out of control. What do you say?
Well, Neil, as you know, we're planning now. The current plan is to add another $12 trillion in new debt over the next 10 years. My plan, which is not the whole plan, it's just attacking discretionary spending, is $2.5 trillion. And the fact that a lot of the Democrats are saying this is outrageous just tells you how much trouble we're in. We need to do this with discretionary. We need to reform in the entitlement programs. Obviously need to get the economy back on track. That in itself will increase revenues. But if we're not serious about it, I mean, what the president is talking about is so nominal as to not even be relevant. So $2.5 trillion is a good start with discretionary, and I think there's a lot more after that if we get serious.
All right, now I'm wondering though, Senator, with all due respect to you and your colleagues who are trying to get these numbers under control, I'll give my due to the president, essentially trying to do the same thing, is you're all seemingly discovering, maybe at the same time, how huge they are and how in the face of this massive debt just piling up interest every day, that just to keep pace with that, your cuts would have to exceed $4 billion a day, right?
They would have to be very serious. What we need to do first, Neil, is we need to have a balanced budget amendment that forces us to come into compliance with our budget every year. Unless we do that, we're going to constantly be fighting about what it is that we cut and who's cutting too much. We need to have a balanced budget or we're going to bankrupt our country. So we've got a lot to do, and I think the most important thing is to convince Americans that this is really serious and that cutting $2.5 trillion over 10 years is a small amount that's only the beginning of what we have to do. And if the politicians here, the presidential candidates, if they're not willing to come to the table and say, we've got to do some fairly dramatic things to save our country, then I don't want to talk to them, because there's some people up here who are pretending, and I think the president's one of them, and there's some, I think now, particularly some in the House, who are getting serious about the need to really cut spending.